Friday, everybody, and welcome to Problem Solve Her podcast. I'm your co-host, Chloe, along with my girl,
Dagmar.
Daggy's in the house. Chloe's in the house. Hello, everybody. It's the last Friday of January 2026, and we invite everyone to join us, whether you're listening or you're watching, to a fun, innovative, awesome podcast where people inspire and motivate and share their stories. And think of this as like your second home to come and listen and be whoever you are, because we don't judge anyone. And we're just happy to be here, aren't we, Daggy?
Yeah. And if you decided 2026 is your year to grow and to shine and to become the person you're meant to be, listen, because it's our journey and we are here and happy to share and really bring our inside out, what we learned, what we did, and what we gained from it.
Love that. That's absolutely true. I feel like every time we do an episode, you and I learn so much more, not only about each other, but just it feels good for us to share different stories and memories and things that I wouldn't normally think about. But when I hear you speaking, it prompts something in me. Like we talked about on the last episode when I said I'd run all the way to the club and see if my dad could beat me in the car. And you talk about the forest and growing up. And those aren't things, you normally just bring up in a conversation. Like, hey, by the way, I have this story. Just want to let you know, when I was a child, I grew up in the forest, or, I was jumping in all my neighbors' pools. It's like, wait, hold on. What are you talking about? So it's nice to have those. And I think it also reminds a lot of adults that are watching, right? We have mostly 35 and over watching us and listening. It can bring them back to their childhood, because at the end of the day, we're still all kids at heart. And I think it's so important to remember and, be able to pull a photo album out or find a t-shirt that reminded you of something really funny, or a jean jacket. And I think it kind of coincides a little bit about the topic today, because it's really important for us as humans, and especially if this is your year, women and men. What do we need to do as part of the year, Jackie, for the topic today that's going to help us grow?
Absolutely. The topic today is when it's time to let a relationship go, business-wise, job-wise, or your personal relationship with your other half, with your family, with your friends, with colleagues.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I'm already thinking in my head, like, okay, yeah, that much fun.
So I thought the topic was very important because for many, many, many moons, when it's time to let go of a relationship, did not fit who I was, because from my beliefs and my faith, you don't let go of a relationship, you stay to the bitter end. And no matter how painful it can be, like for me, it was always job-wise or then with clients or in my personal life. Like there's nothing what you cannot handle. There's nothing what you cannot do. There's nothing you cannot overcome. To the point, and that's just a few years ago, where I realized you make yourself smaller and smaller and smaller and less valuable. And then at a few points in my life, I felt like, oh my God, my soul is dying. Like I'm in a relationship, I'm an employee, I'm with this client, and it takes everything out of me. And after a call or when I come home, like there's nothing left of me anymore. So I really worked hard. I have to say, I worked hard, did a lot of personal development, self-development, and realized I had signals all the time, all over. And I just didn't want to see them. I wanted to ignore them because I believe in long term. I'm loyal. Like I just got a call from my cell phone provider. Oh, thank you for the last 12 years. And I'm not surprised. Pretty sure with my insurance too, with my doctor. So I'm not, from my personality, switching easily or perhaps barely. But then also it makes you get stuck and not growing anymore, but really going backwards. And then health-wise and mentally, and emotionally, right? Really suffering getting to the point. So now I'm pretty good and when it's time to let go because I have a list of things and I'm going through them and I'm checking them off. And if I have more checked off, more than two, then it's not a good relationship for me to be in. For my nervous system, for my mental health, my God, physical health, or financially. So, and I'm grateful I'm at this point in my life now where I can make healthy decisions and not decisions because I feel I have to. Does it make sense?
I mean, everything that you said, I agree with 1,000%. I'm like you. That resonates with me. I'm also like a long term. I've been with AT&T. I'm on the loyalty program. I've been with them for 15 years. Most of my relationships, family and friends especially, and personal, for a long time. I mean, I was in a extremely long term relationship that I'm still fully not. I there's still some connection, and I believe, like you do, things can be fixed, or, you want to cherish and hold on to certain relationships that you've invested so much time in. And I noticed in my 20s, it was like I had to hold on to every relationship from high school and every relationship from college. And then I got to my 30s, and a couple of my best friends and I would say, if we met these people tomorrow, as right now, would we be friends with them? And I'm like, no, we're so opposite. We don't have anything in common. But I've known you since I was 14, so I feel like you're part of my family. So I think that's part of it. And then in business, same as you. It's like I ran a nonprofit in New York for almost a decade, and I was very close with the family. I went to all the bar and bat mitzvahs, weddings, and they had a lot of children, cousins. I knew everybody. And I felt like I had to stay, as the COO and working these crazy long hours and on weekends because I was so committed to also the family. But I said at some point when I finally resigned was I have to put myself first, and I can't work these hours, and I have to have time for me. And sometimes it takes a long time for us to realize when it's time to let any type of a relationship go. But like you said, if there's a few things and it's affecting me, and as Marcy would say, if this person has access to your energy, then no, because then they're having some kind of a hold on you. So I agree with everything you said. And it reminds me of several things throughout my life and relationships that had to end that were very, very difficult, but I knew was the right thing. And one was a particular friendship of someone I had been friends with since eighth grade. And we were extremely close. And I felt and I knew that I was a very, very good friend in more ways than one, emotionally supportive, financially at times. And something very specific happened where she kind of used the situation and then turned it around on me. And unfortunately, we stopped talking. And all of our friends were like, you have to make amends to her because she was in the wrong. And they weren't ganging up on her. It was like, you have to do this. You have to speak to Chloe. You have to make this right. We've all been friends for 100 years, basically. And she said she was going to, and I would get excited about it. And I feel, go, okay, she's going to call me, or this is going to happen, or I'm going to run into her. It never happened. And it took me a long time to let it go because I was holding on to the thought that in some way she was going to come to reality and do the right thing. But we can't expect people to do what we would do. And for whatever reason within her, and I know she doesn't like confrontation, and she's, I think she's a little scared to approach. But the interesting part about it is I will see her next month because one of our best friends is there's a big birthday party in New York that everyone's going to. I'm going to for the weekend. And I heard that she's going to be there. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Of course, I will be cordial, but I don't know how you feel about this, but when so many years are lost in a friendship, I'm talking about almost a decade, it's like, where do you even start from there? And how do you even mend something like that?
So here's how I am. And it's not good or bad, it's just how I am. Takes me a long time and I can drop, 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 drop. But when it's overflowing, I'm done. And then I don't look back. I'm just gone. And I have that in my life, in jobs, with clients, and in my relationships. And it's not a good thing. I'm working on it because you don't want not to talk about it and let it grow, 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 grow. And then you just leave, right? I really, at this point, I want to talk through it and then see, is there still a foundation, right, for a relationship? And if there's not, that's cool. If there is, so what can we do about it? And I think it just comes from growing up and being taught you give, 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 give. So you start over giving to have value, right? And you don't set boundaries. And as you started talking about the topic, I think there's one story which shaped me the most in my whole life. I don't have problems of conflicts, but if somebody is pressuring me and I cannot get out of it, that's tough for me not to just react not in a negative way, right? And I don't want to react in a negative way. So I let it happen. And one time I had an employer and their web developer tried to get his way by pressure, pressure, pressure. And at one point you just give in because you don't want to deal with it all the time. And this went on like for a while, like at least half a year. And then he started calling me. So no boundary setting, started calling me after work. Oh, I just want to discuss that with you when we have time to talk to them. And I really want you that we do it in this way. I made the mistake. I let him talk. Internally, I could feel like it was negative, but externally, I didn't stop it. Right? So I let him talk, let him talk, let him talk. And then I hung up and it was already, 11 o'clock something. So for 3 hours on the phone and feeling this pressure and trying to hold your point and not make him upset because he was not always emotionally stable, but give enough in because I had to work with him, right? So 11 o'clock we hung up. 11:30 I felt pain. And my God, am I getting a heart attack? And then I felt like I got dizzy. I felt like I had to throw up. And oh my God, I have a heart attack. I got a heart attack from that. And I felt horrible, but I drove myself to the ER, went through all the tests. And at the end, I had nothing but all the symptoms. But physically, I couldn't find anything. And that switched something in me that I decided, how can it be that I let the situation go so long, that I created all this negative energy in me and allowed a person to do that without setting the boundaries and making them more valuable than my own health. And after that, whenever I got in a similar situation, I stopped myself and I looked through my checklist, and my checklist is pretty simple. Is how does it feel, right? Did I set boundaries? If yes, does the other person recognize the boundaries or hold the boundaries? And then, is that the life quality I want to have in my life? And that really made me aware of the impact of what a relationship can have to you if you don't set boundaries, if you don't value yourself, if you allow another person to take your energy without that they give you energy.
Absolutely. I like that you have the checklist because at any time, if you're kind of questioning yourself, don't. You go to your checklist and go, nope, these three things are right here and it's happening in this moment. I understand that being in that situation and feeling like, and you drove yourself to the hospital to the urgent care ER. I've been there. You're having an anxiety attack. That's really what it is. And it's the stress that induces that. So it mimics as if you are having a heart attack, that something's going on, you're having a stroke, whatever it may be. Your cortisol levels are out of control. Your heart rate is very high. And you feel like physically something's wrong with your body. And nobody, especially in any work environment, I don't care if you're making $1 million a year, if you feel like that at any given moment, down the line, that's only going to get worse. What if you stayed with that employer in that job in that environment for another 2 years? Who knows what physical damage it could have done to you emotionally, physically. And I think that in this day and age, this is in the US I'm talking about, because I know in Europe they don't do this. They siesta on the afternoon. They do not work on the weekends. They don't do these hours. You know, you're European. Americans have this like 10 to 12 hours a day, work, 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 work. And people, they age quickly because they're constantly around the clock, whether, it's doctors, lawyers, they work on Wall Street. The craziest thing is, and it's almost like an oxymoron, but I can't tell you how many times I would go to a hospital to visit somebody or had a doctor's appointment, in a big group of doctors. And the doctor or the nurse is sitting outside, heavily overweight. Okay. I always need to lose a couple pounds. I'm not here body shaming, but they're working in this space. They're doctors and nurses smoking a cigarette, looking totally drained, dehydrated. You can see it all over their face, and severely overweight because they work long hours. They're extremely stressed and they don't sleep. And I think it's so important for us as humans. Yes, we all want to make money. I constantly want to make more money. So do you. Everybody wants to feel comfortable and not have to worry about bills, which is so important. But even more importantly is your mental and your physical health in any work environment. And I've been there like you. I had a boss, that would call me on the weekends all the time or pressure me into, going on a trip with him somewhere. So because he needed my help, and I would say yes and miss out on family time and certain holidays. And, you do these things when you're a little bit younger, you're living in Manhattan and you want to make money. And, but I think when you start to realize, and it could be at any age, it just depends on when it hits the person. Like you said, the boundaries, personal relationships, family, friends, work environment. If someone is doing a boundary for you that's uncomfortable, then that's it. My thing is, when I get uncomfortable, my body starts to get very warm. Like if I'm in that moment and I'm feeling someone's pressuring me, like you said, or feeling uncomfortable, my body is telling me it's getting warm and it doesn't like what's going on. But like you and my parents, because you're all Geminis, you guys all do the same thing. You wait and push, 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 and then you guys eventually snap because you hold it all in. My mom's like that. My dad is more like me, like a Taurus, like right away, boom, let's get this, and then we're over it in like 10 minutes. But I think as humans, we make excuses like, oh, well, it's okay. This person was in a bad mood and something else was going on, and let's not take it personal and all these things. And then you think back and you go, that relationship should have ended a long time ago. And I don't know what it is because I'm not a scientist, I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist. But there's something within the human development where we just can't let go. There's something within us, and this happens to everybody, where whatever it is, they can't let go of that relationship. Do you agree?
I agree to a point that this relationship has something for you you don't want to lose. If that relationship has nothing for you and you can live without it, you have no problems letting that go.
Well, that's true. When and you know this because you and I both had a few relationships last year. Yours was a lot longer than mine, a friendship where, where sometimes we have to say it's become a little more one-sided, or I'm not getting out of it what I get out of other relationships. And, you know, it's a loss, you're mourning a loss and it happens. But the great news is that there are so many other people around you that you trust and you love, and that makes you cherish those relationships even more. And I've talked about this on here with you, and personally, my brother and I sometimes, go through periods where we don't speak. And I'm actually okay with that because sometimes I have to take a step back. I grew up in a household where everyone was so involved in everyone's business and everyone knew what everyone was doing all the time. I had friends where I would go over and they barely speak to their parents and we'd be having dinner. I'm like, is anyone talking here? Come over to my house, there's like 10 conversations going on. So I appreciated it in a sense, but sometimes maybe we're too raw with each other in a moment. And then it sparks an argument and then, other things ensue. But we're in a great place right now. We're in a really, really good place. And I think that siblings, especially, and you would know this, they can get to you more than anyone else on the planet, even more than your parents sometimes. They just know exactly what to say in that exact moment that they know is going to upset you. And they're just, turning that knife and they're trying everything they can. And in those moments, we can take a step back and say, hold on a minute here. This is my boundary. So I definitely think that what you said about having the checklist is really important. And actually, I'm going to revise mine. Mine's in my head, but I want to write one down so that when it starts to happen, I can just if two out of those five things are happening at any given moment, I'm out. I don't need three. I just need two.
Yeah, makes sense to me because what we have in our brain in the moment we need it, perhaps it's there, perhaps it's not there, or we have an illusion that it's something else, right? But if you have it written, you have it written. It's written in stone and you just take 2 minutes to go through it. And if you practice that, you really have the ability to just move on then and not stay in the sadness, suffering, bitterness, right? Angry, because it's all negative energy and it's your negative energy. So it takes your energy and nobody else's. I would say that's the key now that I'm getting older, that after I make a decision, if I want to stay in the relationship or not, I move on and I don't question it anymore.
I love that. Once the decision is made, out, done. I'm pretty much like that too, but not 100%, but most of the time. It's hard to do that. It takes a lot of discipline.
Takes a lot of discipline. And it also helps you to save time and energy and at the end, resources. Because if you make a decision but you don't stay behind it, you really didn't make a decision, right? You had a
100%.
thought and you have a wish. But if you're still emotionally in it after you make a decision and don't move on, then you're not at the point.
It's true. And letting someone drain your resources, it's more exhausting than perimenopause. I'll tell you that much. And very, very exhausting. We have to find a way in the very beginning. And this is what I'm trying to do now in any relationship, anyone that I'm meeting. And, I meet a lot of new people in my building all the time. And people will say to me, you're so exclusive about like who you choose as your friends. I'm like, absolutely I am. I am not freaking in college where I need to find like 50 friends. Like, I'm friends with everybody, friends with this group and that group. I'm a grown ass adult doing grown women things. I am happy with having a smaller circle. I will say I do have a big one in terms of just people in different places in the world. My whole group of friends are in here in Florida. I grew up between New York and Jamaica. That's where my core group are, right? And I have a lot of very close friends in England, my cousins in Amsterdam, one of my dad's best friends from Germany, their whole family. I'm happy with my group of people, whether it's family, friends, or even people I would choose to work with at this point. I'm happy with that circle. And if I meet somebody new that I'm considering like to take on as a friend or a new relationship, or maybe someone to work on a project with, and like you said, boundaries are off or the energy is shifting or it's just not feeling right, I'm out. Goodbye. I can't waste my time and I won't allow that to come into my life because I've gotten to the place where I am now and I'm very happy with who's around me. And I know you are also. And that's it. End of story.
You know what? The other thing, what I learned, so when I realized mentally, emotionally, physically that it was time to let a relationship go, I made the conscious effort to reach out to the person and to share with the person, I love you and this is what I'm feeling. And where we are right now, it's not good for me to stay in it. And here's why. And then depending on the reaction of the person, if the person said, and I mentioned that because it happened to me last year. No, I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry. No, I want this relationship, and let's talk through it, how we can make it for both of us. I love it. So then I had decided I would leave it, but I was brave, right? Because we all want to be loved. Nobody wants not to be loved. So it's easier to hide and just disappear as to share with the person what's happening with you and why you don't want it anymore. So it was a great experience, and we're still friends, and it's much better than it was before. So I really learned to step up for myself and what my needs are and share them no matter what the other person's reaction would be, right? Because I didn't know, was it positive or negative or perhaps neutral? Perhaps the other person would have said, no, I'm good too. I mean, we both good. We had a great time and let's move on. So when I make decisions that this is not the relationship I want to have anymore, instead of overstaying and staying too long and waiting to the point where, oh no, for sure, I don't want to be here. And I'm already emotionally like 5 miles away anyway. So now at the point when I start feeling it, I start talking about it. And when I talk about it, I don't talk about it angry or upset or sad. I make an effort first to go within me to understand where I am and why do I feel like this. So when I have the conversation with the person, I can see it from both of our sides, not just from.
That's beautiful. I love that. I like the term when it's time to exit. We guys know when it's time to exit, okay? And to leave. And I know it's hard and it takes a lot out of us, but to live a happy, as Dagmar would say, peaceful life, we have to surround ourselves in general in everything that we do. From the moment we wake up till we go to bed and work, just our environment, where we live, who we interact with, all of these things have an effect on us. And I listened to something the other night from this neuroscientist that said, before you go to bed and when you first wake up in the morning, is has everything to do with your cortisol levels and how they're going to be for that entire day. So obviously before you go to sleep at night, you don't want too much stimulation, or you don't want to watch a horror movie or think any negative thoughts or have an argument with someone. And the first thing when you wake up, if you're scrolling on TikTok or you're watching all the horrible things that are happening in the news, your cortisol levels will spike and you're messed up for the whole day. So I think it's important if we can try to get into patterns of having as much zen and relaxation before bed when we first wake up, not jump right out of bed. I like to, just do some deep breathing and as we say in Jamaica, give thanks for life and just be happy to be alive, and to kind of take that as the first thing before I wake, in the morning, and let Oliver kiss me and wake me up. And that being said, my takeaway is know your worth in every relationship that you have and choose wisely.
My takeaway is when you feel it's time to leave the relationship, take a moment and be honest to yourself and look in the mirror and figure out why you want to leave it. Is it more about you or is it about the relationship? And then make loving, respectful steps to end it. Honest. Let's add honest to that.
That's beautiful. And it honest. Sometimes, unfortunately, something happens, which is, I don't want to use the word catastrophic, but it's where you can't, and you don't have to get, and you can't get the closure, which is so hard because we all want the closure. But David Guillaume talks about it. Marcy talks about it. Sometimes we don't have that closure and we have to create it within ourselves. And that's okay because that's going to happen in life. But we hope that this episode has prompted everybody to look at your group right now around you as you're driving, when you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, or you're at home and you're on YouTube and you're like, these women kind of know what they're talking about here. I need to take stock with my life and see who's around me. So we thank you. We hear you. We love you. And Daggy, tell people where they can find us.
On our website, ProblemSolvHer, her YouTube channel, Problem Solver, Instagram, Problem Solver, and the Hutch Girl on TikTok and Threads.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. We love you.
Thank you. Just a quick note before we end. This conversation is for inspiration and empowerment only. It's not medical, mental health, or legal advice. We are not doctors, therapists, or lawyers. Just women sharing real stories and personal truth. Always seek professional guidance for your unique situation.